This is episode 50, the Standing Aid podcast. Welcome everyone. It's been a while. I'm joined by my usual suspects. I got Michael Gomes, Courtney Tanner, Tommy Rush Jr. He will be joining us in a few moments, and very special guest this afternoon, Keith Cologne, New Jersey prospect, rising amateur. Joined by him with Mike Steadman, trainer and founder of Ironbound Boxing Gym. So with no further ado, let me give the podium to Michael to start off the interview. Michael?
Gentlemen, welcome. Everybody out there, I feel like it's been like decades since we jumped on a podcast. The world's been very crazy for everybody out here. So guys, I know you're probably not familiar with the panel. So Courtney's been serving our country now for a couple of months. So God bless him. We don't know when he's going to come back, but he's like, 10 hours difference? And he always does his best, and he tries his best to be on no matter what time it is over there. And usually we hop on at 10 o'clock at night Eastern time, and it's probably 5 in the morning over there, or whatever the case may be. So Courtney, always a pleasure to have you on. As usual, the podcast will never be the same if you're not on. So Keith, man, you look even younger on Zoom than you do on your Instagram. So you're 17 years old, right? You're from Newark?
Yes. Yes.
Which part of Newark are you from?
Right now, I live in East Orange, borderline of Newark and East Orange, but I'm mainly I was born in the Central Ward.
Gotcha. All right.
So Martin Luther King Boulevard, right around there.
Yeah, no, I know the area very well. I was born and raised in the north side of Newark by Bloomfield Ave before my parents moved over to the Ironbound section. So you started boxing at the age of 10. So why don't you tell us a little bit how you got into boxing before I introduce Mike? I know, Mike, you're a huge part of Keith's life right now, as well as your father. Tell us a little bit of how you started in boxing, how you got into boxing, etc.
I started boxing. Well, I actually started boxing when I was about 7 years old. I really started boxing because I was always small. So going to school, I was always the smallest kid. In my family, I was always the smallest kid. So my dad knew growing up it was gonna be tough, especially playing sports. People gonna pick on you in the basketball court doing this, and so he knew that I had to protect myself on my own. And so growing up, that's the first thing he did, put me in boxing so I could learn how to protect myself early. And I took a little break I started when I was around 7. I took a break 8, 9 years old. Then I came back to it when I was 10. But I didn't start competing until I was 12 years old. And then from there, everything just took off.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And where do you stand now? I know that Aaron put on the notes that you were supposed to compete in 2019 December in the Olympics. Did that come to fruition? And if it did, or what's the expectations moving forward?
I competed in the Olympic trials, but they every so years they switch up the age limit. So the age limit was supposed to be 18, and I could have been eligible to make it, but then this year, last year they switched it to 19, so I'm not eligible to make that. So I'm gonna just eventually just turn pro, let my body develop a little bit more, gain some more national experience, international experience, and just turn pro.
Awesome. Now I know the young man next to you, well, at least it looks like it's next to you on Zoom, Mike Steadman. You're the founder and the owner of Ironbound Boxing Gym, which is actually located at the Gateway Center. Am I correct by saying that?
No, we're actually, so it's, I'm the owner of Ironbound Boxing brand, right? So we got a hybrid. We got a for-profit and a non-profit. And we actually have a boxing gym in the Ironbound off of Rome Street. And then my office is in the Gateway Center.
Awesome. So right there on Rome Street. My parents live on Walnut Street, not too far away.
We're very entrepreneurial over at Ironbound,
Nice. So tell us how you got into the boxing world and your influence with Keith now moving forward, obviously, and his father, Keith Sr.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm originally from Texas. I had a chance to go to the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. And I don't know if you all know about the service academies, but everyone there does boxing. I ended up getting introduced to the sport of boxing at 19, fell in love with it, and ended up competing in the collegiate circuit. Went on to win 3 national boxing championships, 2 most valuable boxer awards, was captain of my boxing team. I just maxed out boxing in college. What I tell people though is you don't win 3 national championships boxing a bunch of midshipmen. So with my teammates, and I used to travel to inner city gyms in like Baltimore, DC, Brooklyn, right? I sparred at Gleason's, Freeport Powell, Starrett City, like all these like places now. But one thing I noticed was a lot of the kids in these inner city gyms, they had no aspirations outside of the ring, right? So like all they felt like they were either doing was either going to turn pro or go back to the streets. And I always thought that model was broken. So I moved to Newark when I got out the Marine Corps in 2015. I was an infantry officer in the Marine, so I did a combat deployment in Afghanistan. And when I got out, I came to Newark with the intent of building a boxing program that was about more than boxing. Like I could care less about like professional boxing, to be quite honest. Like I find it entertaining, but in terms of like young men like Keith, I'm trying to push them to get greatness outside the ring, you know? Now, don't get me wrong, we can fight. You know, we spar, we travel. I love the gym work. I love the gritty sparring and stuff. But like, I'm more interested in Keith, you know, succeeding as a entrepreneur or something. I want him to have options outside the ring. And so that's how we built up the brand. So we started a free gym in Newark, me and Keith's dad. And then what I ended up doing to fund the program was I launched Ironbound Boxing as a form of employee wellness too. So we work with companies like WeWork, Spotify, Next Jump, NYU. We teach them boxing classes. I use those funds to fund the free gym and also eventually hire trainers like Keith.
Oh, wow. That's an amazing story. Actually, that brings up an idea, Aaron. I'm in Raleigh right now, so it's about 15 minutes away from Newark, and I have to go to Newark often. Like I said, I have family there. I like to do maybe another podcast, but perhaps we do it right there at the gym if you would like, if it's possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I think that your mission, you know, based on what you're just telling me, working with kids, with the youth, et cetera, you know, that's an interesting story, and it's a voice that I think that the community itself needs to hear more, so you can inspire more people to do what you're doing.
Yeah, you meet so many kids in these gyms, man, and they come in, and the big thing they always ask is, Coach, I need a job, or they start asking you all this advice. And so as trainers, I think we need to create opportunities for them to gain employment, you know? So that's why I built the other business to kind
Absolutely.
of feed them into that.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Seriously, that's incredible. Keith, why don't you touch on your relationship with Mike and his influence on you as, you know, growing up, and also his influence, not just in boxing, but like Mike said, outside of boxing, and trying to inject that entrepreneurial spirit in you.
So first, I met Mike at another gym, and like, you know, first, you know, great spirit, good spirit. Always came to the gym, pump up the gym, always had great energy. But then as me and Mike started to get closer, he became more of like a father figure, like towards me. You know, he helped me get into a great high school, which I can't thank him enough for that. He helped me with so many things. He just pushes me to think differently than, you know, the average kid. And like now, Mike is more like I said, he's a father figure. Any questions about anything, I know I could go straight to Mike and ask him, and I could get a straight answer. He's been pushing me to not only be like an entrepreneur, but he's been, you know, he in my opinion, he just want me to have open options, just so I wouldn't be forced to do something that I wouldn't want to do. You know, he like before my time come for me to pick my career or anything, he want me to be well experienced in multiple different things, to have options, and not just to be stuck and just pick boxing just because like it's my only thing that I'm good at.
Awesome. And why don't you go on and also tell us, you know, how Newark and East Orange, living in an urban area, has molded and shaped you in a way that you're being shaped right now as far as entrepreneurial. I feel like more people, specifically kids growing up in like urban areas like I did, I feel like the entrepreneurial spirit is in us more often than kids that grow up in like in the suburbs or rural areas, for whatever the reason may be. It's because we kind of have to, you know, we learn to be on our own at a much younger age, or whatever the case may be, either from a psychological standpoint or from a social standpoint. Why don't you go into detail regarding that? Like, you know, a lot of people say, the streets form a person, but how is it living with people in urban areas? How has that shaped you, your personality and who you are today versus who
Right.
you were when you're growing up at the age of 10, 11, 12?
Right. So like growing up in the streets of Newark, you gotta really expect the unexpected. So I think in like being an entrepreneur, it's the same thing. You can't really trust too many people, but you gotta trust somebody. And like you're gonna be on your own, but you also need to have your team, your support system. People that you could fall back on, people that that's gonna be there for you when nobody else would. So I think like the things that I learned just being in Newark, living in Newark, my experiences in Newark will help me in the future.
Awesome. And Mike, how's your relationship with Keith's father? I know that Keith, leans on you on a lot of decisions. How's your relationship with Keith's father, on and off the boxing ring? How does that mesh with you guys? With not only teaching Keith or being an inspiration to Keith as far as boxing, but also almost like a son to you.
Yeah, well,
Am I right by saying that?
yeah, no, I'll tell you, Keith, they're family, both of them, Keith Jr. and Keith Sr. And like I'll be straight up, like I'm 33 years old, never met my father till this day, so I have to gravitate towards male figures just to kind of figure stuff out. So Keith's dad is like super wise, man, and for me moving into an urban environment like Newark, you can ask Keith, they tease me all the time, like, I didn't grow up in the streets. I'm not gonna front, So then I'm moving to like Newark, New Jersey, of all places. Coming from Texas, so like the rules are just different in that environment. You know what I mean? Like I think I'm doing the right stuff, but Keith's like, Mike, you're moving too fast. You're doing this kind of stuff. So he's really like in the Marine, we call it Overwatch. I'll put like a rifle team up top so they can watch me while I maneuver around. Like Keith and his dad are like my Overwatch. They keep me out of trouble. I can call him for everything. We talk about everything, life, boxing, we're all about the kids, and we just kind of mesh, you know what I mean? Like Keith is like, his dad is like the Pied Piper in Newark in terms of he knows the streets talk. He knows where the kids are. He gets all the kids. I mean, he can pack a gym for sparring. I'm more like support, I kind of help get things in place. I like to view myself as like putting kids in positions to succeed. And what's interesting about what Keith said, like, he's right. Like, man, I've gotten to see him grow up because, these kids in Newark, man, they're so up against it and they don't even know how to win, right? They're still trying to figure it out. And so, watching Keith grow, watching him develop, go to St. Benedict's, now I'm kind of pushing him into a little bit of digital marketing. So he's coming into his own in terms of like he gives me advice on stuff now. That's where we're at. Not just the boxing, but just like on like business and brand.
So, I mean, I could see already that he's got the right people around him. I mean, my brothers went to St. Benedict, so I know what type of education, not education, but I know Father Ed does not mess around in that
Not
school.
at all.
He does not play around. He's going to turn you into a young man at a very young age, and I know that for a fact. Like I said, he shaped both of my brothers up. Keith, what is the plan? Mike, what is the plan for Keith for the next 5-10 years when it comes to boxing?
Well, I think, me and him talk all the time, too, about, like, what's a good school for him? What's a good fit, right? So I think with this whole, like, coronavirus, I think he's going to have a lot more flexibility as an athlete in terms of, like, taking advantage of online education options while training, I think his dad is smart. His dad's smart. We're never going to put him in a position to fail. We'll always be their support. Like, again, I'm not the biggest, like, pro boxing kind of guy. But I will make sure that, like, I'll leverage every contact I have within, like, the veteran space to make sure that he has the support he needs. So, like, we're already helping him get set up with his, like, LLC, all that kind of stuff to make sure that stuff's dialed in. We'll make sure he knows his finances. He knows how to read the contracts and all that kind of stuff. But really, we just give him the options. He can do whatever he wants. I just want to make sure he's covered financially outside of boxing. That's my goal. So, like, corporate training, there's no reason he can't be training CEOs, to bring in some income while he's doing his boxing class, while he's training as a professional, or getting him on the digital marketing side of the house, doing a lot of stuff I do. So really the sky's the limit. I just give him options and then let him pick. And whatever way he wants to go, even if it's not with Ironbound, we're still going to support him. I don't want him to make the same mistakes a lot of us have made.
Gotcha. Keith, man, you're a lucky man because, obviously you have a lot of people around you that not only support you, but love you. I could tell, by the way Mike is talking and his mannerism. So Keith, what is your plan? What do you want to do in the next 5-10 years?
So in the next couple years, so like I said, I definitely want to go pro. That's one thing, but like that's not gonna always last. So I know I'm gonna have to do something else. So like Mike said, I'm really big on this digital marketing. I like, for some reason I like marketing just because like it just I don't know, to me it just feels good, just promoting things. It just really working, building your brand from the ground up, building yourself from the ground up, just being a kid from Newark, and like not too many people know you besides like, just your neighbors, your friends, to like the whole world knowing who you are. Like, I don't know, it just made me feel better, like made me feel like I did my job as a person. But of course I want to turn pro. And wherever that leads me, it leads me. But I want to eventually, I will go to college right after high school. My goal is to attend Rutgers University, and I'm looking into like digital marketing, possibly even some real estate, things in that nature.
You said real estate?
Yeah, real estate. My father always taught me real estate. He always told me like everybody need a house to live. Everybody need a house to live, a car to drive, and eventually everybody gonna die. So you gotta invest wisely.
He's a wise man. They're not making land anymore, so he's a wise man. I'm in real estate. If you ever want to have a powwow about real estate, I've been doing it for 20 years. I own a couple of properties. I own a couple of the Newark, Elizabeth, Linden. So I would love to sit down with you and chat about that.
For sure.
You got the right mentality. I could tell that you're going to be successful, whether it's in boxing or outside of boxing. It doesn't matter. To be this young and to have your mindset that you're already winning. You understand? That you're already winning. And that's the beauty of coming up from areas like Newark and East Orange, urban areas, that we have to grow up faster at a younger age. And that's a positive. That's not a negative. And that's what I love about, anybody that grows up in those areas. You just have to become a young man a lot faster. And that's fine. I don't know, anybody else on the panel? I know you guys have a couple of questions. Courtney, I know you like to ask questions. Ask away. The mic is yours.
Yeah, I got a question for, actually a two-part question for Mr. Mike Steadman. First off, I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on the show, and also appreciate all that you've done for our country as a former military officer. Along those lines, my question is, how did your time at Annapolis and in the Marine Corps as an officer, especially an infantry officer and basically a leader of men, how did that translate into your transition as far as your new role in leading young and impressionable young men, as far as in the gym, and who are aspiring to do things not only in boxing but in life? And
So for me, I've been in the hot seat of a leadership position since I was like 18, pretty much. It's all I know. Like even in this coronavirus time, right? All these boxing gyms closed down, people twiddling their thumbs, waiting on stimulus checks, waiting on that. I'm not built that way, right? Like, Marine Corps teaches you to improvise, adapt, and overcome. And so what you've seen us kind of do is Keith and I went digital quick. We went digital within like the first week. So all those corporate clients where we were teaching on-site boxing too, I had to stand up and get it online. The other thing too is just being quite frank, coming from Annapolis, I'm from Texas, grew up in a single parent home, and it was the first time I saw kids just create stuff. At Annapolis, it's like, somebody's like, we need a jiu-jitsu club, and they create the jiu-jitsu club, just off cuff. And so kind of coming from that culture, when I moved to Newark, I was like, yo, I want to build a boxing gym. And I didn't really have any money or anything to do it. We just figured it out. And so it's a lot of that piece. And then two, just being comfortable being in leadership. Newark, to be quite frank, they don't really know a lot about like the Naval Academy, and like my background as a Marine officer hasn't gotten me very far. All they know is that Mike moves different. That's what they say. He just moved different. One day he's here, one day he's there. Now we see him on TV, so it's just like, I just move different, But the other thing too is the amount of support, man. These kids, one of the reasons Keith was able to go to Benedict's is because I had two Naval Academy teammates give us a scholarship to send him to the school, and they didn't want anything. They don't even want him to know their names. They're just like, hey, Mike, I see you in Newark doing good stuff. This is how we're going to support. And so a lot of the support we get for Ironbound, and the reason why we're able to do a lot of stuff we do is because it comes from the veteran community. About 99.9% of our donors are veterans, and many of them might be Trump waving flag supporters, but to be quite frank, they don't like black and brown kids in places like Newark going without. So we just rally around that mission and they support it, and it's all love. These guys, they'll come to the gym. Like Keith is like a rock star within that community. I'll have people messaging me like they know him. Oh, what's Keith doing? Where's Keith fighting? How can I help? So that's just like the veteran love and the veteran community.
And next question is, what do you see as the next level for what you're doing with Ironbound and the kids in Europe? I mean, in Newark and whatnot.
Yeah. So to be quite frank, man, with everything that's going on with coronavirus and whatnot, it's just kind of changing the landscape of what boxing looks like, what wellness looks like. And so I see us as kind of really driving impact nationwide to keep boxing and amateur boxing going, free boxing. So what we're looking at doing is pushing out a lot of free content to municipalities all across the country, communities all across the country, really being forward thinking about what does life inside a boxing gym look like post, shelter in place and whatnot. We're going to grow our wellness brand. So we have a lot more clients. We got a lot more sustainable revenue coming in. That way we can fund, that way kids like Keith have a job where we're taking care of our own. And we want to do that all across the country. So if you're in Chicago and, Goldman Sachs office wants a virtual boxing class or something, boom, hey, Keith, you got it. Set them up with the equipment, set them up with the time, boom, take one of our other boxers. And then long term too, like I call it the $1 Million Boxing Fund, right? Like I don't think kids in the inner city should have to pay for boxing. Like if there's a kid in Chicago or Baltimore or East St. Louis and he wants to box, I don't want paying to be a barrier entry for him. So we want to get him in the gym for free. And we're using our for-profit model to do that. And then long-term goal is like, we would love to be able to cut checks for kids to start their businesses. So when Keith says he wants to start the digital marketing company, like the first check should come from us to help them get going, and mentorship and guidance is like entrepreneurs. So that's like, I know that's like reaching, but like, that's what we're working towards.
That's a good deal. That's good stuff. Question for Keith. With your coach being a former NC or collegiate national championship champion in boxing, and you saying that you're aspiring to attend Rutgers University, does a career as a collegiate boxer, is that something that interests you, or is that something you thought about?
I mean, that's something I definitely thought about. We talked about like going to schools such, I think it's Michigan, I think it's Michigan. They have like a collegiate boxing program. But the main thing is like, me knowing like I'm most productive home. My support system is here. So my best option right now is stay close to home. Even if it's like, whatever I gotta do, but I'll be most productive, most like, I'll be focused home, no distractions. So I think the best thing for me is like, stay close to home and just ride the wave out.
Sure. Best of luck to you. And if Tommy and Aaron have any questions, I'm ready to hand the mic over and diversify.
Sure, I'll start. My question for Keith, this is strictly a boxing fan question now. Right now you fight at 114, 110?
123 pounds.
What was that?
123 pounds. I fight at 123.
123.
123. Okay. So let's let's say you enter the pros right now. Which fighters that come into mind that you would just love to like just for the passion of it spar against, or maybe in your mind in the pros?
Well, like of course it got to be Shakur Stevenson. He came down to the gym one time. We sparred. It was actually fun because like everybody in the gym sparred him. So he sparred about 8 rounds, and then after, all the kids in the gym sparred him. But when it was like my time to spar him, like I just, I don't know. Like, I take pride in not getting hit. I'm a real competitive person, so I wasn't trying to get hit, and I was trying to hit him. And so, like, after he was done with everybody, he was like, I was about to take off all my stuff. He was like, nah, like, come back in the ring. I need my full 2 rounds, because we just did like 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. So he was like, nah, I need my full 2 rounds. Like, he wanted, he wanted to get back at me. So I was like, all right, no, I'm from Newark. I'm not scared of nobody. He got 2 hands, I got 2 hands. And he ain't nothing special. But he's a great role model. I shot him out because he always come back to Newark, show the kids love. But my favorite boxer right now got to be Shakur Stevenson. He coming from where I come from. He paved the way, and he's just really, like, opening the kids in the inner city eyes, telling them that, you could be whatever you want to be. It's not just what everybody else say. Like, don't try to fit in, make your own way. You're special in your own way, and you could be whatever you want to be.
One thing I'll tell y'all, I'm always telling Keith, right? Because when you box out of Newark and you're pretty decent, what does everybody say? Oh, the next Shakur Stevenson or whatever.
Yeah.
No, man, it's the next Keith Cologne, you know? And another thing, too, like Keith will get on camera in these interviews and he's like, I just want to be great, and I'm trying to help him get the mentality. Bro, you're already great. You're great as is. Like, you are fine as is. Just be great, period.
Right.
That's what's up. And also, in one of your recent Instagram posts, you posed an interesting question. You asked your fans, do you have more power than speed, or more speed than power? It was kind of a trick question, in my opinion. In your eyes, do you have an answer for that for your fans? What do you think?
I feel like, I don't know. I feel like I'm just blessed with both. I feel like I'm blessed with both, and I really turn it on and turn it off. So, like, if I have a strong fighter that I'm fighting against, I'm not gonna fight fire with fire. I'm gonna be the smarter person. Stay calm, stay relaxed, be fast, go in and out. I'm not gonna try to show that I'm like, the stronger person. Nah, my goal is to win a fight. That's what I'm here for. I'm not here for nothing else. But if it's a faster opponent, I kind of slow things down, pick my shots and just use my timing. But to answer your question, I think I have to go with power, just because, like, when I was first starting, that's what I was mainly known for, just being real strong, just always calm and relentless. So I think I have to go with power.
And it's interesting you mentioned timing, because I watched your YouTube fights, and one thing that did stand out was your timing. So it's an interesting point you brought that up. Also, my next question: not too long ago, you sparred with Amanda Serrano. Could
Yes.
you shed some insight of how that experience was like?
Oh yeah, that's a great experience. Not only do I. Wait, hello, y'all can hear me?
You good?
All right, yeah. So not only did I spar with her, but I also got the privilege to train with her. She actually just called just to check up on us, but she also called just to let us know that she want to keep continuing sparring. She got a big fight with Katie Taylor in the UK, I believe, but we don't know exactly when that's going to happen because Katie Taylor's stuck in the UK. She can't come to the US right now. But I'm her main sparring partner for that, just because of, like, she just like my elusiveness, my speed, and it's not like she's a girl, but she can punch. So I don't look at her as a girl, I just look at her as another sparring partner, and we just go at it. It's a great experience though. It's all love.
Good stuff.
What is it that we can do, the Standing 8 podcast, what is it that we can do because I really appreciate the movement, and because you're really in my backyard in Newark, wanted to know what we can do to help you guys out, as far as, putting the word out there, maybe increase revenue. Is there something that we can do or you need from us?
Honestly, first thing is this stuff right here is great. You know what I mean? Like a lot of these kids that come out of Newark and they don't even know how to talk, right? Because they're not getting a lot of interview time, whatever. Just getting our athletes on platforms like this to kind of go through and practice speaking is really beneficial. Ask Keith. Keith used to not talk. You know, now he on there just whatever. So having opportunities to leverage platforms like this and just raising brand awareness, you know. We got to talk big and think big and let's get that message out about what we're trying to do. You know, I fundamentally believe kids in Newark should not have to pay for boxing. And we're doing everything in our power to make sure that that happens. And so, you know, us in this room on this platform, you know, we already know the dire situation amateur boxing is in financially, right? Just getting kids to tournaments, just, you know, having access to gear, having access to equipment. So with Corona, I feel like this is going to amplify everything, especially with people being unemployed, waiting on stimulus and all that kind of stuff. So I think the biggest thing is we got to just keep boxing alive. You know, we got to kind of think outside the box and, you know, really stay ahead of this thing and not get caught slipping, you know?
Yeah, no, you definitely bring up a good point, and it'll be interesting with COVID-19. What are going to be the effects? We know obviously the effects are negative in general across the board, not just for boxing, just in sports in general, right?
Yeah.
Just saw UFC put out the first event with no attendees. And they're thinking about doing more and more, and they have no other choice but to do that because or else the revenue is just going to be squeezed out. And you know, I'm hearing talks maybe boxing will do that as well. But yeah, you're right. I mean, you know, from pro all the way down to the amateur level, it's becoming a really big problem, real big issue when it comes to revenue, when it comes to money. So, you know, once things go back, you know, which I don't know, we don't know when we're going to reach a level of normal and what is the new normal, right? Because we know it's not going to be the same as it used to be because people are not going to have that same comfort level. So even like charity events or, you know, amateur fights, you're not going to see venues that were packed before. You might not see them packed now, right? Because of people's fear, you know, because of the virus contracting, whatever. So it'll be interesting to see what it is that we can do going forward to be able to help boxing in general, especially boxing as a community. As far as your movement, you know, definitely leveraging stuff like this is great. Perhaps even going to schools, elementary schools, high schools in Newark, probably high schools more so, right? And you know, telling your story and telling what exactly it is that you do, and perhaps bringing Keith along and let Keith talk, you know, in front of a, you know, not the class, but an entire senior and probably junior class, so people can be empowered and inspired by what you guys are doing, especially if they see Keith being, you know, young, motivated, someone who is in boxing but is thinking outside of boxing because, you know, you and his father have done a great job, you know, mentoring him. That'll be something that I think that would be very much appreciated, especially in urban areas like Newark, East Orange, Elizabeth, etc. You know,
Yeah,
so
no,
maybe,
absolutely. You know, big thing for us is if we had $1, we can always train boxing. You know, just getting our funding sources dialed in because we squeezed. I mean, we take lemons and make lemonade. That's what we do. So anything that allows us to kind of keep going and be forward thinking and, you know, just lowering the barrier entry, you know, that's our big thing. We lower the barrier entry to box. Oh, I can't get to the gym because I don't have any money. Boom, here's a bus ticket. I can't afford a gym membership. Here's your gym. I don't have equipment. Here's your gloves. You know, kids got no excuse. But you bring up a good point, too, because a lot of our kids get to the gym through public transportation. Parents aren't letting them ride buses post-COVID. You know, they barely let them leave the house now. So I think it's going to be like, how do we get the support to them in the home? You know, are we sending them free heavy bag stands? Are we giving them gloves? You know, I think it's going to be we need a lot of brain power this next year and a half. And we need financial support in order to provide assistance.
yeah, definitely agree. And now that everything, not everything, but majority of things are going virtual, this might be actually a perfect time for you to implement a lot of this because we're reaching out to people the way we're doing this podcast, right? Everything on virtual, and it's probably going to be like this for quite some time. So I think that your message and what you're looking to do is probably, believe it or not, more viable now than it was before, because kids are being home. Parents don't want them to take public transportation, and that's going to be something that's going to continue moving forward for quite some time, unless there is a vaccine. And then you have to prove that the vaccine works in addition to that. So it might take 2 years or 3. Who knows? Nobody knows. I don't know if Courtney, you're looking like you have a question, but if not, I like to start some controversy on this podcast. I have a tendency of doing that. So, Courtney, I know you look like you wanted to ask a question, so I'm going to give you the podium.
No. But I mean, hey, since I'm in the hot seat and got the mic, yeah, I'll go ahead and ask another one. But for once again for Mike, you made mention that you were a former 3-time national champion collegiately in boxing, and you bring an interesting point as far as kind of like the decline of amateur boxing in the United States and how that's been going for years. But also, I think many of the average boxing fans would actually be surprised that there is collegiate boxing out there. Do you doing your work and having an emphasis on the youth, and particularly in the inner city, have you thought about doing any objectives or as far as programs or plans in the future to kind of steer kids in the inner cities from the gyms to maybe collegiate boxing programs, as a means to also do boxing and improve a person's life in that sense, but also enter into that realm of higher education?
Like, you grow, right, while you're in the city. When I first moved to Newark, I thought college was the end-all, be-all, okay? But now just kind of seeing some of the dire financial situations a lot of these kids are already in, I've kind of changed my view on education in general, right? So a lot of the stuff that, like, I view people like me to go off and pay for this big education and then come out and kind of create our own education to help guys go from zero to hero off a jump. So we do push them to college, though, absolutely. I just got my master's from Rutgers Newark, just wrapped it up. I just graduate like tomorrow.
Congratulations.
But like for us, it's just like for me, it's common sense. Like, we got a great school right there that's already begging for Newark residents, So if we can build a relationship to where, our kids just we feed them right into that. But one thing about us too is, like, I think for our amateurs, they're just a little bit more elite than the collegiate level, So like when you were asking about Keith is like an elite amateur, So when he was talking about Michigan, that's a program where they prepare them, where they're going out competing internationally and whatnot. So I think for a lot of us, I think like the best situation for what we can build is just kind of leveraging all the universities right around Ironbound. You got NJIT right there. You got Newark. You got Seton Hall. You got all these schools, Essex Community College, So I see it more as like, these kids go to these schools and then we run them on the amateur circuit, elite circuit, and then we help fund them to kind of go. And a lot of times, like, they want to go to college, but they don't have the guidance, right? Because they might be the first one in their family to do it. So we're more about like, how can you go to college, not go broke doing it, and have a job, when you're coming out of it? Because there's no point in going to get 80, 90K in debt for a 35K job, right? And you're seeing a lot of people struggle now with that. So, I mean, we'll see. We're all about education. We got a library in the gym. If you go to the front of the gym, there's a library, books. We were building a podcast studio before Corona. So I think we're going to build our own little internal education program, to be quite frank.
Yeah, that's awesome. It seems like you're really hitting the head with, like, increasing or rather decreasing, financial literature, basically. You want kids to financially be smart, understand exactly. And it's kind of lined up to something I wanted to do a long time ago, actually, in Newark. And Keith was talking about real estate. And I see a huge importance of people, because in Newark, you have a lot of multifamily houses, 2 families, 3 families, 4 families.
Right.
And I see, and nobody really tells kids anymore to do it, or not anymore, never actually. But when you come out of high school, not every kid is going to go to college, right? Some kids in Newark will go to trade school. A lot of kids will go and become a longshoreman, become an electrician, et cetera, et cetera. But it would behoove a lot of kids, once they start making some money, whether it's $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, to start putting money aside to invest into like a 2-family or a 3-family. Even if you're breaking even at the end of the year, it's not making you any money. You're just breaking even. It's an asset that you're going to have. And then 15, 20, 30 years down the line, you could sell it, you can keep it, you can leverage it, whatever the case may be. So I was thinking about bringing, light to that financial literacy in Newark, because a lot of people, parents, don't really talk about it. And, generational wealth, et cetera, that's something that goes very much in line with, what you're trying to teach, not just Keith, but all the youth that go to Ironbound Boxing. So I respect the movement for sure. That's why I'm really, really, excited that somebody like you're putting that out there, and you're investing your time, right? Because
a lot of people talk about financial literacy. What you're talking about is financial independence. How can people be independent of the rat race, right? And so real estate. And another thing, we and Keith go back and forth about this all the time. What do you see professional boxers do? They throw their name on their logos, on their shorts, right? They brand their name, right? Keith's got a dope name. I'm not going to give it on this podcast because I don't want people to steal it. But I tell him, yo, don't brand your name. Do that brand. That way, other boxers can rep the gear, So if you have a dope, like Standing 8, if your name, instead of calling it, Mike Steadman, boxer, hey, I'm with Standing 8, And every time I go in the ring, I can have that on, and then somebody else can have that on, and somebody else can have that on. And now you've got this like brand that can operate independent of you, where he's got money. He can make money off his name without even being in the ring. Like, that's the kind of mindset that we have. Like, nobody else can wear Triple G. I'm not going to go in the ring and box and rocking Triple G. But if you got some dope saying or something, then you can kind of build a movement around that. So financial independence, man, I love it.
Yeah, you're definitely diving deep into that, and that's awesome. Like Air Jordan, for example. Like I know Triple G is part of that brand. So I think you're hitting the nail right on the head. That's awesome. So now I want to spark some controversy, because that's what I like.
Go.
Right. So let's get into a little bit of boxing. I know that we all miss the sport. I'm a boxing fan. I also watch a little bit of UFC, but I was actually happy to see UFC on TV the other day. I was like, oh my God, everybody needed it. So favorite heavyweight, I'm going to go with Keith. Favorite heavyweight currently right now?
Gotta go with Tyson Fury.
Yeah, buddy.
Gotta go with Tyson Fury.
I was going into, that's exactly what I was going into, because that's been controversial for the last couple of months, right? And the coronavirus has robbed us of potentially one of the best trilogies ever. So there's a potential trilogy happening, whenever this whole mess goes away. Who do you have in the third fight, and why?
Oh, Tyson Fury, of course. Like I pay attention to the small details, right? Deontay Wilder, he's a great fighter. But his main asset is power. That's just what he banks on, power. Tyson Fury got skills. Skills is what pay the bills, man. Skills will last long in the game. So I gotta go with Tyson Fury.
You sound like Floyd. Sound like Floyd Mayweather. Look, Keith, I just want to let you know, you just upset about 2 or 3 guys in this podcast, all right? You just upset Courtney, Tommy, and Aaron.
Hold up, man. I'm gonna dead this right now. I'm gonna dead this right now because Mike Gomes, he gets on here and talks a lot of shit in regard. He's on this rah shit, and concerning Tyson Fury. But the thing is, if you go back a few episodes, his pick for Tyson Fury was very freaking tentative. He walked the line very gingerly. That was the most ginger, pick. He tiptoed on that, and then a week after the fight, he comes on here. Like he's dropping nuclear bombs and knowledge and Lotus bombs and is all knowing and all omnipotent shit. Mike, we see you.
Listen,
we see you, man.
I took D-Rock.
We see you.
I took D-Rock $100, all right? So I put my money where my mouth was. All right. So, Mike, favorite heavyweight currently right now in the game?
Man, you got to go with Tyson Fury, because for me, it ain't even about the skills. It's just like Tyson Fury has that like 1970s heavyweight mentality. You know what I mean? It's like when you watch Ali versus Frazier, not Ali versus Frazier, but Ali versus who did he knock out in 8th round? I'm drawing a blank. George Foreman.
George
You
Foreman,
know, that just mentality that like I can't be beat. You know, like mentally, just kind of having it. Like that is when you see Tyson Fury. Like he literally has the mental to beat whoever you put in front of him. And I think he's just shown that over and over again. And I think this puts him at a different level because he has like fought the best. He's not like ducking these guys, and he's done it consistently. And when I just watch him like mentally, I just think he's at a different level. I think a guy like Deontay Wilder, you know, he kind of huffs and puffs, but deep down, does he really think he's the baddest? You know, and I think we found that out when he fought Fury the second time.
What you're saying is that the 60-pound costume had nothing to do with his loss. That's what you're saying.
Nah,
I doubt
It was 40. It was 40.
Oh,
nah.
40 pounds. Okay, 40. I forgot. 40 pounds.
Like anybody who's ever boxed before, like who's ever sparred, when you're the big bully and you just knock people out and you hit someone with your hardest shot and they get up off the ground, right? You can lie to everybody else, but you can't lie to yourself, you know? And we've all like, if you box, you've been in them situations because when you go through something like that, you know more about the other guy than his whole family. You know what I mean? And so like, I think that's what Wilder was facing. He got out bullied, you know, because especially when people were telling him like, yo, if you didn't knock him down, you would have lost that first fight.
Interesting.
I mean, when you get a 20-second count, I mean,
I knew you were going to say something like that. It was a 10.5-second count. Get out of here. Get out of here. Switching divisions. Let's go because I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to hear about you guys defending Deontay. Let's go to middleweight. Keith, your favorite middleweight? Why? And what is your middleweight dream matchup right now?
Middleweight.
You got Charlo, Canelo.
Yeah. My favorite middleweight right now got to be Canelo. But, that's my favorite middleweight right now. But my dream matchup, I do not know why this hasn't happened yet. I don't know if you know Boo Boo, Demetrius Andres, him versus Canelo. I think that's the man to beat Canelo.
We know why it hasn't happened because he's the man who could beat Canelo.
Right.
It hasn't happened. Boo Boo is going to he's like the plague. They're not going to try to fight him. Trust me. Yeah. We've been talking about that for about a year now in the podcast. It's interesting. I mean, you know, you're boxing obviously, so that'll be interesting. I don't think that fight will ever come to fruition. In fact, my theory is that Canelo went to 168 because he's running from Boo Boo.
Right.
Mike, your favorite middleweight and dream matchup right now?
I mean, Keith is a smart guy. You got to go with Canelo, right? Canelo's got the nice high guard. He's fought freaking everyone, it seems like, thus far. So he's top of the food chain. I don't know, man. I wouldn't mind seeing like Canelo. I don't want to say dream match at middleweight, but like maybe give him a shot at like a Billy Joe Saunders or somebody. You know, I think he's right about Andre as well. But I think it's just going to come down to who they think can like draw the biggest gate. You know.
Right.
And I don't know if Saunders can like bring that much of a gate, but I think his style is a little bit interesting. You know, he's like on his feet. He moves around to kind of see how that plays out. So.
Yeah, that's a matchup that we've discussed also in the past. It'll be interesting. I still think Canelo takes that, potentially even knocking Billy Joe out. But the Boo Boo fight would be interesting to see if that happens. Here's one that's pretty hot. Welterweight. In light of Spence's accident, it seems like he's made a full recovery. There's a lot of – I think everybody here is more of a Bud Crawford fan. I am for the most part. But everybody knows the dream matchup, obviously, is Bud Crawford versus Spence. If that fight were to happen today, Keith, who do you roll with?
That's hard. That's hard. But I think I had to go with Spence though, just because of the fact when Bud he fought Benavidez. It was like early in the beginning of the rounds, you know, like Benavidez was still there, but he didn't really look like too good. He looked good towards the end, but when he hit Benavidez and Benavidez was still coming, I think like that right there was like it I don't know. I just seen a different Bud when that happened, And if he faces a much more sharper person like Errol Spence, and I don't think he'll be able to handle that pressure. And plus, I seen Bud get hurt like bad against Gamboa. You know, like he got hurt pretty bad against Gamboa. And with a bigger puncher like Spence, I don't know if he could. I know he could take a punch, but you know, it's just Spence got power as well. I don't know if he can handle it.
No, that's a good take on it. But remember, Spence has not gone in the ring yet, so we don't know what type of Spence is going to.
Right, that's true.
Mike, what's your take on that fight? Who do you pick? Why?
If you just talk about just sheer size, right? You got to give it to. I mean, power and size and everything. I think that could kind of lead it to Spence a little bit. But Crawford, man, I just think he's more technically sound. You know, like he's just a very technical boxer, and guys like that, I think they just rise to the occasion. You know what I mean? Like as good as Spence was, I mean, we saw what happened with him and what's the other guy he fought? Damn,
Ricky Garcia?
not Garcia, the other one.
Porter.
Porter.
Sean Porter.
No, Porter ain't got the best technical style, whatever, but styles make fights. And you saw what happened there. And I just think, dude, Bud Crawford is just a sharp boxer. Like, I just think he's like, I think he gets it. You know, and I really doubt that he would just stand there and let Spence beat him up on the ropes, you know? So I would have to lean. If you just want to go size and power and just wear him down, I would leave, you know, Spence. But technical sound, like if it went to the decision, I would go with Crawford.
Nice. I got a good matchup for Keith because it's right around your weight. Teofimo Lopez versus Lomachenko.
Oh, of course, Lomachenko. No, Lomachenko
hurt some people in this podcast, man. You're gonna get You gotta get some people.
Nah. See, Teofimo. Don't get me wrong. Teofimo is a crazy sharp boxer. You know, I've seen him in the amateurs a couple times. Teofimo, he's one of the top up and coming. You know, out of the young division, the young class. But Lomachenko, he's just different. Literally, he could adapt to anything. The only thing that I see, a person that'll give Lomachenko problems is a southpaw that can box as well as him, but that has a longer reach. Like Campbell was a great opponent, but the thing is, Campbell didn't really have the skills, and he didn't really have too much power on his punches. He was looking more of like he was more happy to be in a ring with him than actually beating him. You know, so I think Lomachenko will eventually beat Teofimo, but don't get me wrong. You know, Lomachenko time coming. You know, this Corona, everything being on pause, it might help Teofimo out in the long run.
Interesting take, and yeah, I probably have to agree with you, Mike. That matchup happens. Who do you got? Who you rolling with?
I gotta go with Lomachenko, man. I just think he's on a different level as a athlete. You know what I mean? Like you occasionally get those kind of great athletes that just see the ring different. I just think he's one of those guys, and I think guys know that going in there with him too. So I think there's that aspect. But I want to go back to middleweight real quick because I forgot. There's a boxer I like just his style. David Benavidez?
Oh yeah, David Benavidez.
I like his just style. Like he throws a flurry of punches. Going back, I think something like that with Canelo will be dope too. You know, maybe I still would go with Canelo for the win, but I just like his style. I like that aggressiveness, the way he fights.
Interesting. Yeah, Benavidez has an interesting style. Gentlemen, you guys have any questions to ask our guests of honor? Aaron, I want a mic like that. What? Like, here's my mic. Look at Aaron's mic.
That's the one I gave you.
Joe Rogan is like, if Joe Rogan sees your mic, he's gonna be like jealous.
Hey.
Hey, since we got Tom. Hey, Tommy, you're good. Yeah, you're good. Let's give you the opportunity to fire some questions. Podium's yours.
So I do got a question. We were talking about, the welterweights, and we were talking about, Spence and, Spence being favored in some of those fights. One thing that we did hear, from Spence is in his last two fights versus Porter and also versus Garcia, he chose to fight their styles and show, a different version of Spence. Like he chose to fight rough with Porter and he chose to fight a little bit more technical against Garcia. What do you guys think, he would do if he were to fight, Bud Crawford? Now one thing to also keep in mind with that is, in an interview after that fight with Porter, he said, hell no, he wouldn't fight Porter with that same style again. He recognized that was a difficult fight for him to switch. What do you see that he would do? What angle you think he would take? What type of style you think he would try to use against a Bud Crawford?
I think I'll go first. So I think, everybody knows like Bud is like always cautious like the first 4 rounds. That's like when he's most vulnerable. And then I don't know, it's just like after the first 4 rounds, that's when he just started picking it up. So I think Spence, he'll be aggressive the first 4 rounds, just to clinch those first 4 rounds in, or even first 3 rounds. And then he'll be more cautious as time go on. He got a great jab. And so I think he'll play more the safer route, just keep him on the end, keep him away. But, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I see a lot of myself in Bud, being a complete boxer, could switch, could really adjust to anything. So don't get me, like, I think that fight, I wouldn't even choose a person. I'll just sit back, take notes, and just watch. Because it's just too close of a matchup.
Yep.
I think Spence might try to come out and box with Bud, but I think he would get frustrated because that's definitely his like strength, Crawford. And so at some point, I think probably right around, like he said, 3rd, 4th round, I think Spence would try to wear him down. I think he would come out there to try to show that like he's not afraid, he's a technical boxer, but eventually he'd probably get tired of it and realize he's not playing to his strength, and then want to close the show. Stay on the inside move, because I just think if he goes and tries to outbox Crawford, I just think Crawford's more elusive, right? He switches stands, he moves around, he's just sharp. He's a tactician. He's got a chip on his shoulder too.
He does.
Yeah. He turns that dog on right around that, like you said, right around round 5, round 6. Everything he turns that dog on, and that's when he's calculated everything about you, and he just flips that switch. And so, I do agree that would be smart for Spence to try to win those first about 4 to 5 rounds heavily, because that would put a lot in the bank, and then it would just be dog versus dog after that. And that'd be a great show.
Right.
You know what fight I actually would like to see, because Crawford has a lot of dog in him. I would actually love to see Bud Crawford, Sean Porter. I would like to see that matchup.
I think he would eat Porter alive, man.
I think
I do too.
Yeah.
I think Porter
I
gets
agree.
knocked out. I think Porter gets knocked out.
Yeah, Porter's too wide. He comes in all with a guy like a Spence, or a Crawford. He's just leaving himself wide open for that.
That would definitely be interesting, because Sean Porter, he doesn't have the skill set as the top 3, top 4 guys in that division, right? But he has the tendency of outworking most of his opponents, and obviously, he likes to rough people up. He's gotten better as far as skill set in the last 2 to 3 years. We've seen it. I thought he was brilliant against Danny Garcia. I thought Danny Garcia was going to beat him. Not only did he get outworked, not only did Danny get outworked by Sean, but I thought fundamentally and technically Sean was just better than him, which is hard because Danny's a very good boxer. So that would be an interesting fight. The only thing I could say is that we have not seen. We know who Spence is, but we haven't seen Spence after this accident. Like, let's call a spade a spade. Spence is very lucky to be currently alive right now. So how is he going to be? Because Bud has a lot of power behind his punches. Bud carries power. So how is Spence going to react when he does get hit, in the ring? Getting hit in sparring and getting hit in an actual fight is a little bit different. So I'd like to see how his reaction is going to be to that. Did he miss a step? Did he lose a step rather? Is he lucid? I know when he speaks, he's lucid now, but is he lucid when he's trying to cut the range, angles, etc. So that would be interesting to me. We don't know what type of Spence is going to come in. And that's why I said, if they try to make Spence versus Crawford right away, in my opinion, I think that without putting him in a tune-up fight, then I feel like Al Heyman and his corner, perhaps maybe they're hiding something because, I mean, realistically, if you're going to cash out, then you cash out against the biggest or second biggest fighter in that division, which is Bud, right? Bud and Spence are neck and neck as far as like revenue, in terms of revenue, what they make in the welterweight division. So it'll be interesting. It's a legitimate argument. Nobody could tell me how Spence is what version of Spence is going to step into that ring. Nobody knows until we see it, right?
Well, we know he's going to be guessing himself though, because he's going to be wanting to know the same question.
Yeah.
You know, when you start trying to do stuff that you used to do, and you're like, "Oh, it ain't working. I can't." You know, so he's going to be asking them same questions himself, which it would give Bud another upper hand.
Yeah, and Spence's days at welterweight is also counting down. He can blow up. Like you've seen him. Like he can get up to like 200 pounds quick and easily. He's he's not small. He's not small. But and the notion that Bud Crawford's also small is very misleading because I've seen Bud. Bud can easily fill in 170, 180 himself. But it's Spence, like, you know, I watched the video of Spence not too long ago, and he, like, his face, everything, his body was just swollen, you know, and this is months after the accident, you know, and he was already, you know, you could tell, like, so I think maybe he has 2 more fights in that welterweight division before you see him leave and go up if he's healthy, right? We don't know if he is or not, you know, so that'll be interesting to see. Gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for, you know, taking your time.
Michael?
Yeah.
One last thing. Before we end it, I just want to give a very special shout out to Daniel Pena. He was one of the original founders of the Standing 8 podcast. He was the person who introduced us to you guys, Keith Cologne and Mike Steadman.
Oh, nice.
He made this all possible. So we want to give a big shout out to Daniel Pena. He's a New Jersey resident. He actually lives 2 blocks away from Ironbound Boxing Gym. So he was a frequent member before this coronavirus hit. So I just want to give a special shout out. I know he's actually watching us on Facebook Live. So shout out to D-Rock.
Shout out D-Rock.
Yeah. Before we end, actually, I got a question for Mike. Mike, obviously, when Governor Murphy lifts the shelter-in-place ban and starts opening up businesses, what protocol do you have in place to reopen the gym so that way it's safe for everybody to come in? Like, what are you guys doing? Are you limiting capacity?
So right now there's a gym in China, right? That's kind of set the standard for it. I know that they've cut back on sparring. They do a lot of virtual. You can only have like 7 people in the gym. So we've already kind of published some like Ironbound guidelines. We also had some custom masks made too. I wish I had one here so I could show you, but I got like 200 masks for the athletes that they can rock while they're training. Little stuff like that. So I think it's still like we're meeting in the park these days and whatnot. But it'll probably be just a smaller, intimate gym environment instead of like packing it with like 30 some plus, you know, at a time.
Awesome. And Keith, right before we let you guys go, you know, what is your message to anybody who's aspiring to become a boxer that is, let's say, 13, 14, 15 years old? What would you say to them if you had any message to convey? What would it be?
Number one, I'll say, you know, you just gotta be consistent and determined. You just gotta stick with the grind. Consistency is key. You know, your time will come. You can't rush it. You can't rush when, you know, like when you're peak. Everything happens. It will happen at the right time. So, like, don't worry about if you're like 13, 14, even 15 years old, you just started boxing. Don't worry about trying to be a pro boxer like 3 years later, because that's not the smartest thing to do. You know, take it slow. Eventually, you know, probably turn pro around like 23. You know, and plus that's when the male body fully is developed around 23, 24. You know, you fully develop, and you know that's probably like the perfect time to turn pro anyway. But don't rush anything. Take your time. Enjoy the journey. That's the main thing. You know, when you win a fight, when I win a fight, national, international tournament, whatever it is, when I win a fight, it doesn't feel any different than, you know, the fight that I won before. For me, what I like most is like, training hard in the gym. Like when I sit back there with like all the belts and all that, I just think like that training camp, that was a good training camp. That was one to remember. I was with my family, Ironbound. I was with them training hard 7 days out of the week. Traveling here, there. Get to sparring, everything. So for me, that's what I look forward to. I look forward to the hard training camps. I don't really care too much about the actual win. Like I don't care about. Well, I care about winning, but I don't really care about like, how I feel during it. I just actually care about the journey to getting to to the final step.
And that's great that you mentioned that, because and I'm adapting the entrepreneurial spirit in you. So in business, and it seems like in boxing, you have to enjoy the process before you enjoy the results, right? So it seems like because you enjoyed the process, your passion is elevated to another level. So that's pretty good. That's awesome. Again, your mindset is exactly where it needs to be for you to achieve, greatness. And like Mike mentioned before, you are already great. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you for coming on. And, thank you for taking your time away from your families. I hope everybody's safe. Don't step out of the house unless you really need to. Mike, I'd love to get in contact with you in the near future. Maybe we can do some sort of joint venture, once everything settles down and the dust settles. And Keith, if we can, get you back on another podcast very soon, even if it's, live at the gym, depending on, the situation that obviously we're going through, that would be great. Guys, thank you so much. I appreciate it. You guys were excellent. Love to have you guys back on again.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right, gentlemen.
Good night.
Episode 50 in the books.
Boom.